Welcome to a new episode of Delphine Circle, where we uncover the mind, body, and spirit of success. Subscribe now for free to receive updates on the latest interviews. Then, sit back, relax, and tune in. Hi, Dr. Fab. Welcome to the Circle.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. I can't even tell you. For our audience, let me give you a formal introduction. You're Dr. Fabrizio Mancini, a world-renowned chiropractor, an internationally acclaimed educator, speaker, leader. You're also the best-selling author of Chicken Soup for a Chiropractic Soul and The Power of Self-Healing, as well as President Emeritus of Parker University in Texas. I want to definitely talk more about that. I am so happy to have you here because I met you about 2 years ago, and I've always thought, God, I would love to get him in the circle, but you are one of the busiest people I know. Every time I see you, you're in a different city. I just happened to catch you because you're out here for the Cal Chiro conference.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your affiliation with Cal Chiro and how you...
Well, this is the largest association of chiropractors in the state of California. And they've asked me to come and give a keynote presentation, but we're also doing a fundraiser for a chiropractic foundation that we founded called the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress. So what we do is we raise money from chiropractors, their patients, and individuals out there that are philanthropic in the healthcare field to promote the benefits and the value of a healthy, natural, holistic lifestyle, and also, of course, chiropractic.
Well, I love chiropractic, so keep up the good work. I think it's amazing. We'll talk a little bit more about that too. But we met about 2 years ago on the introduction of our mutual friend, Dr. Patrick Porter, one of my favorite people. And I was lucky enough to get invited to one of your VIP mentorship events down in San Diego, the Fab Life. And fabulous it is, I will say that. I was so impressed because not only I think is it been the most helpful business event that I've ever attended, you put together a diverse cross-section of people in the audience from all over the health and wellness industry. You have a stellar lineup of speakers from literally the top people, authors, innovators, incredible. And you keep it a secret, so we're always like, who's it going to be this year? But I think what I was most impressed by is it has such a high frequency vibe in the room. I mean, you walk in and you are greeted with genuine hugs and a sense of gratitude, like a real presence in the room that you just don't see at most networking events. So tell me a little bit about how did these events get started and what was your motivation behind that?
Well, if you're familiar with my background, I was blessed to support the largest event in the chiropractic profession for 13 and a half years. And I took it from 1,800 people, doctors, to almost 10,000 in a short period of time. And one of the things I realized is that when you bring masses of people to an environment, the challenge is, you're having a big impact, but it's very difficult for the attendees themselves to connect with one another. So 8 years ago, I was asked by a friend of mine if I would do an event that was very exclusive to like high achievers. And these are mostly people that I know, but they wanted it in the healthcare space and they wanted to kind of have me and bring some of my friends and mentors. So we had an event and we brought in people like Les Brown and T.D. Jakes and Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield, all my friends. And it was a huge success. But what I realized that the important thing in creating the right environment, whether it's an event or whether it's a business, is to base it on the values of the individuals. So for me, the reason that I don't advertise these events is because I don't want anyone to come in. And if you actually, in my website, I actually, for the first time, have it where I have it listed when the next one is going to be. But you have to apply to even be considered to come in. And it doesn't have to do anything with who you are, as how much success you've had and where you come from. All I'm looking for is values. Mm-hmm. Who are you? What are your values? And the reason that you felt so comfortable from the beginning is because your values resonated with everybody that was in that room. I think it was about 160 people in that room. But everybody there is a high achiever. One of their values is to be a humble servant. Mm-hmm. You know, you're a very humble servant. Doesn't matter how successful, how influencer you can be, you're always going to be who you are with the people around you. So there you have billionaires that have exited from companies. You had entrepreneurs that are doing incredible contributions to humanity, but they go there not to get attention, not to stroke their ego. They actually go there to see who else is in the room that they can get to know as a friend, because it's a lonely life when you're successful. It's difficult to share your inner thoughts because most people can't even relate to the kind of pressures that a successful high achiever goes through.
Gosh, it's so true. And I was reading an article that they have this networking event in Sun Valley, Idaho, every year. I think it's in July. That is like the invitation to get, right? It's like the Warren Buffett and Tim Cook from Apple and just everybody, Bob Iger from Disney. And I was thinking to myself, we've become so remote and everything's become so digital, and yet these events still are pulling some of the biggest people. Yeah. Why do you think it is that people are making time to attend these types of events?
Well, because when you are dealing with your own industry, your own companies, many times you don't have the feedback mechanism that you need to get out of your comfort zone. So when you go to events like this and you meet other people like you and you see that they think a little bit different than you, it makes you recognize like, wow, maybe I should be thinking about my business that way. Or they all of a sudden you tell them what your goal is and they say, why not 100x it? Immediately they say, why are you thinking so small? If you can do this, why can't you do that? And now all of a sudden you say, I thought I was being ambitious with this, but they're making me feel like, so it stretches you. Mm-hmm. So high achievers love to surround themselves. And I always go back to one of my first introductions to personal development was a gentleman named Jim Rohn. And Jim was Anthony Robbins' mentor. And Jim taught me one lesson that I never forget. I was 21 years old and I was in the room with him and I got a chance to spend quality time. He said to me, Fab, of all the things you're going to learn this week, and the one thing I want you to pay attention to is be selective of the people you spend time with, that you surround yourself with. Because I have found in my years of personal development that actually we become the sum of the 5 people that we surround ourselves with. So then since that time, I realized that why am I still going to be hanging out with my high school friends that are going nowhere, that are judging and criticizing my own success? Why am I dating toxic relationships of people that are not even thinking of serving the world, impacting the world the way I want to? They just want to get by. They want to do the minimum amount of effort and get the most reward. I've never been trained like that. So I started hanging out with people that were much older than me. In fact, I lived in a beautiful place at the Four Seasons in Dallas. It's a resort, and they call it resort living. So all of my friends, all of them were 60 years old and above, and I was only 24. And people would say to me, why don't you have friends your age? And you know what I would say? Because I can't seem to find people my age that resonate with what is important to me. Mm-hmm. All they wanted to talk about is what clubs we wanted to go out to, what parties you wanted to go out to, what outfits you're going to wear, and what brands are you looking into. That's not important to me. Mm-hmm. What's important to me is a lesson that I learned many years ago. My value in this moment right now is contributed only to one thing: the contributions that I'm making to someone else's life. So to me, I want to surround myself with people that are making high-level contributions today, not yesterday, because you can read my bio and I can sit here and say, you know what, I've arrived. I retired twice. I've had a very blessed life. I've impacted millions of people around the world. I'm a Hall of Famer in the wellness revolution. I was the youngest president of a university in the United States. I have a library named after me in Mexico by the president of the country. What else can I accomplish? I never think about any of that because all I have today is how I can contribute to someone's life for the better. That's all I live for. And if that contribution has high value, then my net worth, my self-worth is the highest that it can be at that moment. But if I'm still living on my previous contributions, I'm going to be disappointed because you can't rely on what you've done. That's already past and done. Yeah, it was nice, but what are you doing today? And that's what happens to a lot of high achievers. They open a company, maybe they exit it well, and then they become depressed, or they get tired of, a life of leisure with no contribution. And then they don't know, they lose their sense of identity, and they get sick. And they say to me, how can I be in this position? I have everything everybody wants, but I feel empty. Because happiness doesn't come from achieving or arriving at a destination. It comes actually from the pursuit of something. You see, your mission has to be so much bigger than you, because that pursuit of fulfilling that mission is the one that gives us the energy, the passion to drive every day like if it was our last day, which is one of the principles that I've been teaching for years. I came close to dying when I was 16 during the robbery. And that changed my life completely, because I realized at 16 years old, I could have been killed.
Wow.
And ever since then, I made a commitment to myself to go to sleep every night having gratefulness in my heart, but not expect to wake up the next morning. And if I wake up the next morning, I wake up with gratefulness. And then I say to myself, what are you going to do today, Fab? Whose life are you going to impact for the better? What entities or things out there you want to be a part of to make this humanity a better place to live in, a better society to live in? And that's the way I've been since I was 16 years old. That's what led me to my passion to become a doctor. That's what led me to my passions to contribute to all these areas that I have. It's because I don't take life for granted. Now, you know why I learned that too? And it was reinforced when I met my older friends. Like, I have friends right now that are billionaires that are in their 80s and their 90s, and they're like little kids. If they wake up, they get like, what can we do today? What can we contribute? They're looking always for causes that they can fund, businesses that they can help expand, and they don't need anything. But you see, they realize that their happiness, their sense of well-being really came from what you did that day for someone else. And that's really the secret to life, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because, it goes back to why those people go to those big events. It's about the personal connection, right?
And the
Because
quality of the people in that room.
exactly. And that's how we judge at the end of our life whether or not we've had a good life, right? It's really about the personal connections. Do you have 5 people, right? One hand that you can say, these are my true friends and these are what it's about. And when people get to the end of their business, it's not the business they miss, it's the people that they miss, right? They retire and they used to be surrounded by people, and now all of a sudden they're home by themselves and they don't, they don't have anything to do. Because I do see it. I mean, as a life coach, I see it. It's almost as many people that come to me that it's not because they haven't achieved, it's because they have achieved. But now what? They put all their focus into the business and not to the people. You, in addition to putting on these events, you also work with people to mentor people and companies individually. Tell me a little bit more about
Well, the
that
mentoring
process.
component came about because I don't want to be a CEO to anybody else's companies. I have 3 companies, and that's plenty for me. But I have developed certain skill sets over the last 35 years of professional life that a lot of people haven't. And they find themselves in positions that they need to scale their business, or they need to be more efficient in their business, or they need to build a better culture for their business. And what I realized is that I don't need to be a CEO to somebody else's company. I can just support that CEO for a short term or long term. I have CEOs that are making $5 billion a year, but they're calling me because they have certain issues that they don't have the skill sets to handle, and they have found that I do. So
What do you
it's
think
not,
it is that everybody seems to need help with? Because you've probably seen so many. Is there like a common denominator?
well, it depends, because many times people find themselves in roles that they have not been prepared to handle. And many times, even the roles that I've had for other people, I never sought out to be a president of a university so young in my life, but I had accomplished so much success. I have given so much to the school. The university president that was the founder was my mentor, my first professional mentor. He used to tell me he wanted me to succeed him, but I would always say, when I'm 60, never did I imagine that at 33, I was going to be running probably the most impactful entity in the profession, but also in healthcare, because we were driving wellness. And we needed to make sure that people understood that this was not a fad, that paying attention to our lifestyles was just as important as brushing our teeth. That's one lifestyle choice. But what about the other choices, like breathing deep every single day, maybe moving your body every single day, or perhaps selecting more organic foods instead of processed foods, or perhaps having relationships that took time to nurture one another instead of judge one another or criticize one another, when in reality, that's not very helpful to the relationship. So I think that depending on where you are in life, you have to ask yourself, what are my strengths? So when I read the book Strengths Finder, the biggest thing that it did for me, it made me realize that most people, let's say that you are a great communicator and a very great social person, but you're lacking maybe some discipline in your activities or managing your agenda, which happens to a lot of extroverted people. We shine when it comes to making deals, connecting with people, getting the job done, but then you ask us to do a task, let's say in finances, read a spreadsheet or come up with a budget, and then we freak out. So in StrengthsFinder, what I found is that they develop a method to identify what were your strengths and what were the areas in your life that were not your strengths. And what they reinforced was the fact that we should always do our strengths instead of trying to be balanced. So that means you didn't take a course to try to do a better spreadsheet or how to manage Excel properly or how to, do word processor better. No, you went ahead and delegated that to somebody else that could love to do that because that was their strength. And you focus on the one or two things that there's only one person that can do them as good as you. Mm-hmm. That is fascinating to me. So what I find in a lot of these CEOs is that they're trying to be good at everything. And they're trying to run a company, trying to take the credit for it instead of giving the credit and hiring. Like when I moved to Dallas, Texas, I never forget this. I had a good friend of mine that introduced me to Ross Perot. And for the people that may be listening, Ross Perot was somebody that became a billionaire in the tech world. And when I met him and I had some time with him, I was only 19 years old. I had just started college. And he shared with me a piece of information that was really so priceless to me. He said, the secret to my success was that I always hire people that were better than me and that would try to work myself out of the business. That was his philosophy for building a new company, acquiring a new company, whatever he did to build his fortune. It was always hiring better than him. Mm-hmm. So what that tells me is this: we need to know as individuals what our strengths are. And we need to identify also what our weaknesses are. So in order to run a good business, you need to hire the best people in those areas that you seem to be struggling with. Mm-hmm. And stick to what is good for you. Mm-hmm. Reinforce that, become greater at it. Because when you're passionate and when you're good at something, you don't feel time, you don't feel that it's work. In fact, you're motivated to do it every day. But if they ask you to do something that you're not that comfortable with, or you're not that skilled at, you struggle. You will talk yourself out of it. You will find distractions. You will create excuses when they're none, and you never get it done. And that's really one of the biggest challenges that I see a lot of these people struggling with today. They don't know their strength.
Oh, absolutely. One of the best business books ever written was The E-Myth.
Yeah.
And it talks about that. It's about the biggest myth is that just because you're a great pie baker doesn't necessarily mean you should open a pie baking company, right? Because you may not be good at any other thing besides that. I've thought about that quite a bit because I am a serial entrepreneur as well. I can imagine when you stepped into that role was it 33 when you became the president? Oh my gosh. You obviously had to wear a lot of hats. What do you think was the area that gave you the most, like where did you really have to stretch and grow the most?
It was managing a budget that was so big. So I give you an example. Because it was a university, it was a non-for-profit.
Mm-hmm.
So my first meeting with the CFO, which is twice as old as I am, 22 years in the industry in that school, I remember my first meeting with him where he was actually showing me the budget. And we have been losing $2 million operational budget for the previous 2 years.
Mm.
So he said, this is the budget. And I looked at the budget and there is no profit line. And you don't have to use your common sense that in order for a business to be sustainable, there has to be a profit.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, but we're non-for-profit. And I said, yeah, but you still have to have a profit.
Yeah.
So anyways, he fought me. And I finally got him to say, operational, excess operational revenue or something like that. We named it something that we couldn't use the word profit according to him. So anyway, so what I did initially, my biggest challenge was that the school had lost about 600 students over a period of 2 years when they didn't have a president. And we were still operating like if we had 1,200 students, even though we were down to 500.
Mm.
So my first 2 weeks in the job, guess what I had to do? Let go of 117 people.
Wow.
I'm 33 years old.
Well, if there's only
I
500
never
students.
fired anybody in my life. And I asked the human resource lady, I said, I want to be the one to do it. I don't want you to do it. Let me do it. I have people spit on me, throw their coffee at me. And what I said to them was this, I've been asked to come in here in a new role. And when I looked at the budget, one of the things that I realized is that we were operating with a capacity of people that we don't have the need for. Unfortunately, it has nothing to do with you as a person or what you contributed to the school, but we don't no longer need this many people in that department. So unfortunately, we're going to have to let you go. But the one thing I want you to know, and we gave him severance and everything, but I said this, as we build this, and I plan to build it quickly, I want you to consider to please come back because we want you always to know that there will always be a place for you here. Mm-hmm. About 65% of the people, because we turned it around within a year and a half, 65% of the people came back.
Wow.
The other ones, there were some people that were very angry, upset, but I had to do what was right for the entity. Mm-hmm. And no one else had been able to do that. That's what we were losing. So then that decision alone allowed us to profit or have excess revenue, according to my CFO, of $750,000 within the first year. Wow. That's where everything began. So to me, that was kind of a little bit of a challenge because I've never had to make those difficult decisions. Mm-hmm. But what happens when you're in a role of leadership, you have to understand that you're only there as a temporary position and a responsibility to support the entity that you're serving, to support the customers that you have. So to me, I kept thinking of what is best to the students. And what was best for the students is not to raise tuition to pay the offset. That was not going to help them. What was best for the students is to have employees that were not concerned and their faculty that they're going to get fired because we have a deficit again. So I needed to create stability so that student can actually be more receptive in learning and creating an environment that was actually stable and support that educational process that those students were trusting in us, paying us to be able to ensure. Yeah. So that was where my mind went. And thank God we put a great team together. We turned it around and then we broke records in a short amount of time.
Well, and it goes back to what you were saying about the energy of the values of the people in the room. When you kind of bring it down to what are the core values and the core people that are representing and we're supporting those values, it really changes the whole vibrational frequency of an organization, right?
Because there's no egos involved. Yeah. The biggest challenge right now, it's like my youngest son started working with a corporation, and it's a big corporation. And he says to me, Dad, I'm getting to meet a lot of the people from all these financial institutions, the technological institutions, some of the biggest Fortune 50 companies that we have. And he says, what I've noticed is how egotistical some of these people can be. Like he said to me, I went to a meeting in a financial, like one of the biggest, and he said, Dad, they were questioning me because I was 24 years old, but I was dressed professional. They were asking me, oh, did I just graduate from high school? They don't know that I have an MBA. All of these things, because they judge you. Because to them, they feel like they have to work the rat race in order to get a promotion and to get this. In fact, some of their bosses will say, you're going to suffer for 5 years before we'll give you a raise. I told them, well, if you subscribe to that level of thinking, that's what's going to become your reality. But one lesson that I try to teach my children is this. If you allow someone else to set the value for you, you're going to be disappointed. No one will ever set a value for you higher than the one you can set for yourself. Most people in life will always devalue you because they don't know any better. They don't know you like you know yourself. So if you can work on yourself and understand your true value, that's the individual that will usually succeed in life, whether it's through a corporation, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, it doesn't matter. Because it's hard for you to position yourself as a valuable contributor to whatever entity you're serving if you don't even know what that value is. So I always ask them, what do you think your greatest value is? Oh, Dad, when I go into a room, it doesn't matter who it is. I just love people. And I said, great. That's a great value. Most people are an introvert in positions of leadership. They can't even make a speech to all of their thousands of employees because they're trembling. They have to have, prompters and all of these things, and they get so nervous and they're sweating instead of just being themselves and realizing it's just a conversation. You don't have to lecture at people, just have a conversation with people, but you have to really understand what that value is.
Yeah. Well, your boys were so lucky to have you as their dad. But, a lot of people, they go through life and they don't have that mentoring, right? They don't have a parent that understands how to mentor. Do you think that this is something that is going away in our society, mentorship, or people looking for mentors or receiving mentorship?
Well, what I'm finding, which is unfortunate, is that people have just settled whatever they were given. One of the biggest challenges is that I'm trying to help people understand that your circumstances in life, whether it was a breakup in a relationship, whether it's a financial hardship, whether it's an ailing parent, which we're seeing a lot of them, whether it's a job that you lost, or a company that's going through a downturn, whatever the case may be, understand that those circumstances are only there to propel you to become the person you were destined to be. You will never see a circumstance that is negative be a victimized behavior or entity, because it's all about how you respond to it. I can choose to allow, like for instance, during the pandemic, I'll give you a perfect example. One of my clients is one of the most successful chiropractors in New York City, in Manhattan, 35 years. And unfortunately, his building was shut down. So he couldn't open his practice. So he called me and he said, hey, I'm going to go to my house on the beach until they open up. Now, we all thought it was going to be a week or two, and it ended up being 2 months before they were allowed to open up again. So what I said to him, I said, look, I wouldn't do that. Why don't we take all your services? Let's see what we can offer online to all of your patients. So during the pandemic, of course, people were wanting to take better supplements and all that. So he created a whole package on how to boost your immunity, how to, lower your stress. Then he created online packages that were doing other things. And then even technology, he was renting them instead of them coming into the unit. They were shipping the technology to the individual and showing them how to use it so they can do their own treatments. And so he created all these models that allow them to generate income while the office was able to open again. So what defines us is not the circumstances, it's how we respond to them. And you can have a loss in your life become your biggest blessing because it taught you something. My brother was killed at 27 years old. And that to us, my 4 brothers and I, that to us was the greatest lessons. Why? Because it made us realize we can't take life for granted. My brother didn't know that at 27, some individual that was not very stable decided to kill him out of nowhere. Now the man is serving 2 life sentences, but that didn't give my brother back, right? And this man had everything in life. He was so incredible. He was my biggest aspiration because he was so successful so young. But it made me realize that it made me a better person. It made me focus more into what I wanted. It made me work harder than most people because I wanted to make something of my life and I didn't want to take it for granted. So that to me is really what I think the message that most people need to understand is look at circumstances as blessings in disguise. Why did this breakup happen now? Instead of saying nobody wants me, I'm not good enough, buying into whatever you were told, why not ask yourself and say, well, maybe that was not the best relationship for me. Maybe there is somebody out there that is 100 times better than the relationship that just broke up with me. Mm-hmm. You know, I have a dear friend right now, 35 years married, and her husband just came in out of nowhere. Honey, I'm leaving. I'm in love with somebody else, and he just left her. She's still struggling. It's been months. Her mother doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know what to do. Her brother doesn't know what to do. And when I saw her, I just said to her, look, you can either keep living your life like that and feel sorry for yourself and allow someone else to determine your value, or you can do something about it. Find that value, self-worth inside of you again, and go out there and show people what you have to offer. And I bet you'll attract the best relationship you've ever had in your life. And that's what's happening right now. She's finally getting to that point of putting herself out there again.
Yeah.
But it takes effort.
It does take effort.
You know?
Yeah. No, we see that all the time, that people are sent obstacles, things that they didn't expect in their life, and they think that there's somehow it's meant to bring them down. And instead of looking that everything that happens to you happens for you.
Always.
Right? Everything that happens for you. And you look at that and say, okay, what can be the benefit of it? We had a mix up with the schedule today, right? And I was like, oh gosh, wait, that wasn't supposed to happen. But then I thought, I ended up getting to spend time with you, driving in the car. I'm like, this is really wonderful. You know, you never know what life is going to present to you. And if you're always looking for the silver lining, you're always going to find it.
Always.
I thought of that. I started this podcast during the pandemic because I was home and I'm like, I miss my friends. I want to talk to people about how are they experiencing this. You know, 3 or 4 years later, we're still rolling strong and I've got to have so many beautiful conversations. There's always a silver lining if you look for it. Absolutely.
And always think about that most of us are not living our destiny. Mm-mm. Most of us have settled for whether you're successful or not. We just settle. And there's no fun in that, in my opinion. The fun in life is when you get comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's that simple. Look for uncomfortable circumstances because that's where you're actually going to grow the most. Yeah. So one time I was asked to give a lecture, and the sponsor wanted me to talk about my defining moments in life. And I'd never been asked to speak about that. So I sat down for a couple of weeks defining and outlining what were the key moments in my life where transformations happen, where big things happen. Mm-hmm. And you know what I discovered? That all of them, not one of them, was because of a comfort. Not because I got a great multi-million-dollar deal, not because my book became #1. Never. It was always the challenges that pushed me in the direction of something better, something different. You know? So as I was writing this new book, I realized that there were 2 things that are critical in order to transform in life, in order to make your circumstances work for you instead of against you. The first one
Get out of pad of paper, kids.
Is your mindset.
Yeah.
And the reason is because mindset precedes behavior. And most people don't realize. So a lot of people, they say, I'm going to lose weight. So I'm going to join the gym in January. By the time March comes, 80% of those memberships are not going into the gym, right? What's the problem? The problem is you didn't work on the mindset of why you weren't working out consistently the year before. Mm-hmm. You did a patching. It's like put in the Band-Aid. You got the membership and you do it every year, you know, because you cannot talk to gym owners. It's the trends. In January, the memberships go up. By March, 60 to 80% down. Why? Because if you change behavior without changing your mindset, it's not sustainable. But there's something better. If you change your mindset, it gives you access to a whole new behavior that you didn't even think it was possible because you didn't get there with the old mindset.
You were only looking at the options from the first mindset, not from the second mindset.
That's why we have to upgrade the mindset in order to change behavior that will lead to a different outcome. So that's the formula that I want to teach people to recognize, that no matter what they're dealing with in life, ask yourself the question, is there a way I could think about this differently? Because mindset is about your thoughts. But a lot of your mindset is stored in your belief systems that you were pretty much given in your first stages of life. So 95% of our life today is subconscious, or what Patrick says, other than conscious, which I love, right? 5% is only conscious. So 5% of your life right now is what you're thinking you're doing. 95% is what your subconscious tells you you need to do. So in order to change that, now we have the new science called neuroplasticity. We know that your brain can actually be changed. Your belief systems can be actually changed. We were told in the past that was never so, that you were going to be stuck like that for the rest of your life. So to me, it's an exciting time to explore, what belief systems did I acquire that I want to change? What behaviors do I want to change? What mindset led me to that behavior, and how do I need to upgrade it in order to get to a new behavior? And that's when you start seeing the different outcomes. Your life is changing right in front of you, and you're asking yourself, why? Why is that happening? Well, some people call it, when we filmed the movie, The Law of Attraction, I never forget that one of the things that I always thought in the Law of Attraction is that your thoughts lead to your feelings. No, your thoughts lead to your actions. Your actions lead to your feelings, and your feelings attract everything into your life. So if you look at that formula, you pay attention to what thoughts am I having. Those thoughts are leading to an action or a behavior. That behavior is creating a feeling in you. That feeling is the law of attraction. So in order to attract what you haven't manifested yet, you follow that formula, and it works every time. You change your thoughts, you change your actions or behaviors, you create a new feeling, and the new feeling attracts that into your life.
Yeah. One of the new things that I was exposed to, which makes so much sense to me, and they said, it's not that we're not having positive thoughts about what we want to manifest. It's that we're not focusing on our underlying belief system that's blocking that from coming to us.
Of course.
So it goes back to your idea about mindset. We have to understand what are the subconscious thoughts that we're having that may be saying, you know what, I'm not really worthy of that. Yeah. Oh, I probably am never going to find that, you're not going to really meet the perfect person. All these subconscious thoughts that we're having. And that's the really focal point, right?
And for a lot of people, if you don't know where your subconscious minds are, catch yourself in your internal dialogue or your external dialogue. Most of the time, it's your internal dialogue.
Yeah.
Your internal dialogue is the one that's playing the subconscious mind in your head. That's the one that is the broken record that is keeping you from attracting what you really want.
That's so true.
Then you have your external, which is when you find yourself talking to a girlfriend and you say something like, I'm having a hard time. There's just not good clients out there for my business. I want people that really understand that coaching is something that should be a priority in life. Mm-hmm. You're actually creating that own reality just by even saying it.
Yep.
Thinking it too, but saying it even worse. Because they say that your words are one of the most powerful things that attract into your life. Mm. And many times we find ourselves saying what our reality is.
Yeah.
And then we
wonder, it's built into our culture.
Why can't I change it?
We complain with each other. You get into the line, oh, can you believe how hot is it today? Oh, that traffic. It's such a part of our culture that we just build in complaining and the negative thoughts. And it's really something that we have to be thoughtful about.
Well, it's the news,
changing.
right? In the news.
Exactly.
And I've done the news for many years. They have tried to do positive news, and the audience ratings drop to almost nothing, less than 10%. Hmm. But then you have crisis, you have drama, you have conspiracy, conflict, and it rises to 90% and above. So the news people, they just gave up. because the way that revenue comes into the news station is through sponsors, commercials. So if your news are not drawing eyeballs, you can't sell the commercials to the money, so the money can be profitable, so the network can be profitable.
Yeah, we have to start with ourselves.
But what are we doing
first.
to society?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the thing that we all have to come up with. Is like, do I want to be like, it's interesting. Lately, I've been meeting a lot of capital investment people. And I've seen a very big shift. I'm actually invited to speak at one of the biggest capital investment family office speeches with some of the biggest names in the finance world. They wanted me to bring the mindset component of finance and the health component to finance. So I'm speaking in November 12th in New York City. And one of the things as I was preparing for that, when I asked, why did you want me? Because I looked at all the people in there and it's like all the people from, the finance world. And the lady, the organizer said to me, you know what, we've been getting a lot of requests because many of these people, they're not happy with the finance thought that they were taught in school. So they can make all the money in the world. Like I was recently, actually about 8 months ago, I was asked to speak in NASDAQ. So it was a group of finance people and it was a big honor. And they put my picture in the Jumbotron and all that, which was very interesting. And I looked at the audience and it was most of the people that were unhealthy. And I said, there's not a lot of difference between me and you. You wake up every day trying to make more money for your clients. And I can understand that. But I wake up every day trying to make you realize that all that money in the world will never make you healthy or happy. There has to be a balance. But what I was saying is, I'm finding out that these capital investment people are now intentionally selecting companies that are putting good things in the world. I have met like 5 different people that have completely converted their capital investment, and they're now seeking companies that are doing good things in the world where they can have a profit margin that they're happy with, because they're tired of making money by destroying the world.
They have a term for it, cause investing.
You look at the food industry, how obese made the world, right? There used to be a time that I went to Japan. So I used to do lectures in Japan, and there never was any fast food in Japan. Now it's Kentucky Fried Chicken, Pizza Hut. You see them everywhere. I went to school in Rome, Italy, and right in Via Veneto, which is one of the most exclusive roads of the fanciest brands in Italy, and the corner piece is a McDonald's. And the lines go all the way around the building. And I'm saying to myself, what are we rewarding? So I'm glad to see that the consciousness is evolving in society, that there's people out there recognizing that they need to pay attention to their own intentions, their own consciousness, but also pay attention to what is my company, what is my product, what is my servicing? Is it putting something good into society, or is actually robbing society from something good?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you've seen the interview with Callie and Casey Means, good energy. I mean, it's all over the media right now. Yeah. Thank God, right? Like, thank God.
I admire them so much because the courage, and I'm so glad that the videos are going viral, because what I love about what they've done is that these are I call them extraordinary people, because they've taken a big risk stepping out like that. But you notice that if you watch them and listen to them, they fact checked everything they tell you.
Absolutely.
They don't speak from a conspiracy thing. They don't speak from, there has to be something wrong. They don't speak from blame. They only speak from what they've seen, that what they've experienced, what they've researched, and what they can prove. And there could not be a better time for that message, especially in the world of health. Because as you know, one of the biggest topics right now in politics is the health of humanity and the health of Americans.
Yeah, we went from first to worst.
We are the
very
worst.
Quickly. Yeah,
by far.
Yeah,
we spend more money. 95% of all prescriptions are all done prescribed in the United States. That's the world. 95% of all prescriptions are right here.
And what's even crazier, and they talk about this in their interviews, is that we're paying more. The same drug will cost 3 to 5 times more in America than it does anywhere else
Sometimes
in the world.
More. Yeah.
It's just crazy what's
I know.
happened. Yeah. Well, I'm so happy the light is being shined on this because this is, I mean, this is definitely your backyard. This
Yeah.
is your industry. So I'm hoping we're going to see more and more of these guys
I
coming
hear
forward.
that they are nonstop with uh, presentations
Yeah.
and speaking
I think they just did
engagements,
Joe Rogan last week.
podcasts,
Yeah.
and I'm very. I tell you, when I first heard about them, I was so taken because I see two young souls.
Hmm.
And the nice thing is that they have each other to support one another. But then when you hear them talk about the way that they were raised and the values that they were raised, it makes sense to
Yeah.
me. You know, they didn't go into medicine, they didn't go into their respective fields because they wanted to make money. They wanted to make a difference. And now I believe single-handedly, this couple, these two a brother and sister, may actually take the whole system down because the awareness that they're creating worldwide is unbelievable.
But it's all about timing too, because I mean, clearly they're not the first people. We've heard things like this over, but the way that they put the information together, and I think the
Their approach
timing
is
was
so
so
unique,
perfect.
and also you can feel their authenticity.
Yes.
They have nothing to gain in this,
Yeah.
you know? They have nothing to gain.
Yeah.
They're here because they're in a mission that's bigger than them.
Yeah.
And that's what people are responding to.
Well, and kudos to chiropractors too, because I think chiropractors have always kind of led the charge. And in fact, I got to read you this incredible quote from Deepak Chopra. Chiropractors are the only healthcare practitioners who totally understand what's going on. Dr. Palmer was ahead of his time, and chiropractors have been ahead of the field and have a great understanding of the body as a whole. Into the next decade, they should be the ones taking charge.
And, right now I'm working on some big projects about the evidence and the science and reintroducing this profession from a very evidence-based perspective. And the more that we get into the research, the more we realize that we are so much more powerful than just supporting people with their back pain and neck pain, which tends to be what most people think of chiropractic.
Yeah.
I didn't enter this profession because I wanted to be in the neck pain or back pain. My patients, since I was practicing, they were some of the most difficult cases. In fact, I would used to go around to my classmates and my colleagues, and I would say, look, if you have a patient that you can't seem to get a response, send them to me. Let me see if I can help. Because I wanted to work with the most difficult cases I could find. Why? Because I'm a believer that the body has a healing mechanism. I wrote about it, and people responded, which was beautiful. The body has the power to heal. We just have to understand how it does it, and we have to prevent the lifestyles that are keeping it from doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's all we have to do.
Well, we sat next to each other at the biohacking conference in Dallas and watched Dr. Joe Dispenza present, and I'm a huge fan and enthusiast of his work. We actually watched the movie Source last night with my kids. And if anybody wants to see the film, I highly recommend it, sourcethefilm.org. Another way that I think chiropractic is leading, he's a chiropractor. And what do you think in terms of where people are going? Are you a daily meditator, or what do you think about the whole concept of meditation as a healing mechanism?
Well, it's interesting because during my book, I wanted to write about the spiritual component of healing. And many of my friends were saying, don't get into the spiritual. And I categorize prayer and meditation in the spiritual side of healing. Because there was plenty of evidence, and I gave a lot of the scientific journals that have published already studies that show that whether it's prayer or meditation, it has a tremendous health benefit to your body. So to me, what I love about meditation, it was interesting because my friend, my patient, my teacher, my mentor was Wayne Dyer. So Wayne was a big meditator. And Wayne was actually the person that encouraged me to meditate daily. He would always say to me that meditation was what allowed him to be clear with his message, to understand his purpose, to get through the difficult challenges that we all do when we're impacting the lives of so many people. And what I love about meditation is that now we have this fancy word called mindset. Everybody's talking about the mindset. And most people don't even know what that is or where it comes from or where it resides. But to me, what I love about meditation is the fact that there's two ways that you can approach it. For me, as a beginner meditator, I found that guided meditations were the secret to my success. I didn't have the patience, the discipline, or the routine, or the ritual to actually be in silence for a long period of time and not be distracted. I don't know if most people can relate to that.
Nobody can do it
But
in
that
the
was
beginning.
difficult for me.
Yeah.
So to me, to have guided meditations was a godsend. And then when you have guided meditations in the way Dr. Porter with BrainTap, the reason I'm one of his biggest fans is because my kids still today say, of all the gifts they've ever received from me in all their 20-something years of life, BrainTap was the most valuable because they use BrainTap daily. Anytime they're stressed at work, they have a programmation that they can go in there. So Patrick was able to not only put the frequencies of the sounds, but he put the frequencies of the lights all in one unit, which actually have been shown to really
Rewire the brain.
wire the subconscious mind. So to me, that would be my beginning. Everybody should do brain tap initially. Then you can do a guided meditation if you want to find something else that brain tap may not have. And then I would really encourage people to try to practice the discipline as they get stronger. And you could start with 3 minutes
Right.
of complete silence. You know, one of my closest friends recently told me something that I want to do. I don't know when I can do it. He went into a monastery and did a vow of silence for 7 days, and he changed his life beyond anything he could have. And he's a person that has been in this journey for over 30 years.
Yeah.
But he said that when you go into silence, there's no other option but to listen to the wisdom of the innate intelligence. We call it innate intelligence in chiropractic.
Yeah.
Your inner wisdom. Your inner wisdom whispers. But what happens? The outer noise, everybody telling us what we should be, what we should do, is so loud that we
it's
can't
getting
hear.
louder.
We can't hear the inner wisdom. So I believe the answers are within, not outside in. You can always learn from outside in. You can always pick up and say, I really like that. Oh my God, that was wonderful. Oh, this taught me so much. But the true wisdom, your true purpose, your true destiny is always there inside. All you have to do is pay attention and listen. Be quiet so you can listen to the whisper and then let it guide you properly.
Dr. Fab, we do a little thing here called the Big Questions, which gives us an opportunity to dive a little deeper into the philosophical understanding and workings of our guests. Question number 1, did you have any consistent daily routines?
The consistency, the daily routine, I would tell you, is waking up every day and having gratitude in my heart. And the reason I do that is because when I was evaluating all the self-healing emotions, forgiveness, love, I found that gratitude was one of the most powerful things that we can do because it opens ourselves for what is possible. You know, we're not trying to think of the past. We're not thinking about anything, but just right now in the present. What is possible in this moment right now? I'm here. Be present. And I've been consistent with that for a long time. And I think it's been a very key component.
So
to
do
my
you go through a
happiness.
list of what you're grateful for? Do you write it down? How
I
do you
don't
do
write
that?
it down. I just stay in the moment. I'm grateful. Sometimes I can be grateful for, like, it's so funny. Louise Hay became real close to me. And Louise Hay used to tell me that she will wake up every day being grateful, and she'll start with her bed. Bed, thank you so much for giving me such a wonderful sleep last night. I feel so rested. You were so great. And then she will go around the house and she will be grateful for her home. She'll be grateful for the people in her home taking care of her. She'll be grateful for her dogs. I mean, she would just go on and on and on all day long in gratefulness. For me, I usually sit for a few minutes and just be grateful to be here, to be alive, to be able to contribute, and to be able to say, I get to do it again, you know, and not take that for granted.
Yeah. What is the most pressing issue that's facing our world today?
I think that a lot of people have allowed themselves to be victimized by their circumstances, whether it's healthcare, whether it's finances, economy, whether it's government. I think people need to realize that they're in charge by making a choice. We're the only species in the world that has the ability to make a choice, a conscious choice. And we take that for granted every day because they tell you that in marketing, that people will follow. If you say it enough time to them, they'll start believing it, right? That's called propaganda. That's the advertising. I want people to realize to not become a victim of their circumstances. I really, really am serious about that. For me to take the last 3 years to write this book is because I want people to be empowered and stop being the victim. Stop looking to blame. Start with yourself and make a better choice today. One choice. Even if you make one better choice a day, that's all I'm asking. Whether it's in your nutrition, in your finances, in your relationships, in your faith, whatever it is, one better decision today. And let's see where it takes you. And what I've learned by practicing that is that you are inspired to make better decisions a lot more than one time because you see the impact that it can have in your life.
Absolutely. Tell me something that you used to believe, but you don't anymore.
Wow. It's interesting because I grew up with very conservative parents when it came to their healthcare. So we were like all the other families, being raised. I was born in 1965. So, they will do immunizations, and you never question it. They would do
And there weren't as many then as there are now.
behaviors of having to take something for every ailment, every symptom, rather than trying to get to the root cause. I'm very grateful to chiropractic because it opened up to me the world of prevention. So that belief system that I was adopted by my parents, and it wasn't that they intentionally wanted to not do what's best for me. They didn't know any better. And the reason that I've been so passionate over the last 38 professional years is because I know the majority of the people out there have not stopped and asked, is this something I really believe in, or am I just trying to follow what I was told when I was a little girl, a little boy? I find that that's where the problem is. You're not questioning enough. And we need to question, what was it? Because if it, like Dr. Phil is so funny, he has a statement that I love when he says, well, how's that working for you? It's that simple. If something is not working for you, understand that we have the ability to change it. That is every single person, no matter where in the world you find yourself, what circumstances you're facing, you can change it. Absolutely. Even if it starts in your mindset, it will lead to a behavior that can change it. I promise you.
Absolutely.
So that's really where I feel was my biggest belief change, is that I want the healthcare of humanity to change. We're the sickest as a society that we've ever been.
I'm so sad that we're running out of time, but I can't let you leave without asking about your up and coming new book.
Well, this book was something that during the pandemic, I was doing all my television and my lectures, and I realized that people were really struggling more than ever. And I'm not talking about just the mental health struggles that we're hearing about all over the place. They're struggling from a perspective of not feeling like they have an option. If all of a sudden they were working in a company for 10, 15 years and then their job was just eliminated, or they were sent home, or if all of a sudden the love of their life of one time decided, you know what, I can't live with you anymore, I'm gone. Or if they realized that they made some bad investments and they found themselves that instead of being able to retire, they had to go back to work. Whatever those circumstances are, I realized that they were there for a purpose. So during the pandemic, I started interviewing some of the most influential people in different industries. And it became a television show, which is called Thriving in the New Normal. And what I would ask the people is, what would it take to thrive today under these new conditions? And the bottom line was, pay attention to your response. That's the only difference. All of them, from politics to healthcare to finance to all of the industries, pay attention to the responses that you're doing. Are you responding in a constructive way, or are you becoming victimized by what's happening? What we found is that very few people actually were able to pivot and change when the majority of the people were just completely victimized and felt they had no option. So now we're rebuilding. But the challenge is that those decisions that were made during the pandemic, people are still paying the price right now, and they're struggling. I mean, I heard recently that $200 more a month can actually be life-changing for the average American. The economic hardships are real, and people are really struggling. So I want people to understand with this book that I spend the first half of the book in teaching you the greatest resources to shift your mindset. And then I give you the second half of the book of what are the most amazing things that are happening, like, AI, how to leverage that properly. The blockchain and how to decentralize systems that are actually oppressing humanity evolution. And digital marketing. There should be a time that we used to do full pages in yellow pages, right? And they were costing us $3,500 to $4,000. Now you can boost a post for $10, or you can do a social media ad for $50 and actually get more clients than you would ever get through print media. Mm-hmm. So there's a shift going on in the world, but a lot of people don't know how to implement that. So one of the things I did in this book is actually I give you a step-by-step process of how to implement everything I just taught you in that chapter so you can feel empowered. And all you have to do is at least 1 or 2 or 3 things that you're going to implement that month in that particular chapter.
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
I can't
it's very,
wait.
very
awesome.
practical.
What's the name of the book?
The Fab Life, Creating the Life You Want Despite Your Circumstances.
Awesome.
And I call it the Fab Life because I've been teaching people for the last 8 years how to live a fabulous life, how to create the life they want. So I wanted to actually title it that. And initially, I wasn't going to title it that. But the more we tested it, the more we share it with people, the more people say, I want the Fab Life. Yeah. And I try to live that example myself. And it pushes me to be responsible for the message, which has been amazing because it's allowed me to improve the quality of my life as I've gotten older.
Well, and it's a perfect complement to your Fab Life events.
Yeah.
And I'm taking your AI mastermind right now. We just started this week. I'm so excited. Already, the very first class, I learned so much that I can apply. So thank you. And I'm very much looking forward to the book.
It gets better.
When people want to find you, how do they find you?
Well, I often tell them, just go to my website,
okay.
drfabmancini.com.
Okay.
Because from drfabmancini.com, you'll be able to have all my socials. So if you want to follow me, depending on what your preference, you have access to all my podcasts. You know what my live events are going to be. You can communicate with me directly. You will be notified whenever I have a live stream or Ask Dr. Fab or a master class. You can be a part of all of that by just simply signing up and be kept. So that one source, you can get everything from one place.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming today, Fab. It's been awesome spending time with you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Delphine Circle. Don't forget to subscribe. It's free and it will help us keep these incredible interviews coming your way. Here are 2 other episodes you may enjoy. I'm Delphine. Welcome to my circle.